He pushed the baby. Not once. Again and again and again. And every time he did it, the parents got more afraid. They were misreading every single thing they saw. The sound is unmistakable. A large dog's body making contact with something it shouldn't. Thud. Scramble. The sharp intake of a parent's breath. Grace and Marco DeLuca had an 8-month-old son named Luca and a 2-year-old Siberian Husky named Atlas. 54 pounds of silver and white working dog with yellow eyes and the kind of energy that required 2 long walks a day to keep civil. He had been a manageable companion before Luca arrived, good with basic commands, not a cuddler but not aggressive either. Grace had researched dog-baby integration thoroughly. She had taken Atlas through a preparation protocol recommended by a certified trainer. She had done everything the right way. She had not anticipated this. The pushing started when Luca began crawling at 6 months. The first time, Luca was heading toward the coffee table. Atlas appeared from the hallway and moved toward him at speed, head lowered, and placed his body against Luca's and redirected him sideways. Luca sat on the carpet, surprised, not crying. Atlas sat beside him. Grace was already moving toward both of them. She called Atlas off. She checked Luca. He was fine. She told her husband that night. He herded the baby, like he was a sheep. Marco thought it was interesting. Grace was less sure. The second time, Luca was heading toward the dog's water bowl. Atlas intercepted him before he reached it. Body block. Same technique. The deliberate placement of his weight against the baby's forward motion, redirecting him away from the target. This time, Luca objected, which meant he made a sound of frustration that escalated into crying. Atlas sat beside him again and watched. Grace said, "It's the herding instinct. He's treating Luca like something that needs to be managed. That's not what we want. Marco, he's not hurting him, though. Grace, not yet. But this behavior is going to escalate. I've read about this." The trainer agreed with Grace when she described it. Herding breeds can develop controlling behaviors around babies and toddlers. Redirections can escalate to nipping. They recommended managing Atlas's access to Luca during crawling periods. They made a plan. They implemented it. Atlas was gated out of the living room during Luca's floor time. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you are in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. 3 weeks later, Grace was in the living room with Luca during an unsupervised floor time session. Atlas was behind the gate. The gate latch failed. Grace did not notice immediately. Atlas came through the gate at the exact moment Luca, who had been pulling himself toward the low bookshelf on the far wall, reached it and grabbed the bottom shelf. Grace was looking at her phone. She did not see what Atlas had seen, which was the bookshelf. 6 feet tall, loaded with books and a ceramic planter and a heavy decorative box. Lean 3 degrees toward the front when Luca grabbed the shelf with the full pulling weight of a determined 8-month-old who had found a new climbing structure. Atlas moved across the room faster than walking and placed his full body weight against Luca's side. A single solid body block, redirecting him sideways and away from the shelf before Grace looked up. 3 seconds later, the ceramic planter slid off the top shelf and hit the floor where Luca's head had been. Grace stood up. Atlas sat beside Luca and looked at her. Dr. Marisol Fuentes, veterinary behaviorist at the Southwest Canine Institute, reviewed the full behavioral history when Grace came to her 2 weeks after the incident. She made a specific distinction that Grace had not previously encountered. Herding redirection and protective interception are mechanically similar in appearance. The external behavior, body block, redirection, sustained proximity, can be identical. The difference is what triggered the response and where the dog's attention is directed, toward the child as something to manage, or toward an external hazard as something to intercept. In every documented incident, she noted, Atlas's attention had been on the environment the child was approaching, not on the child, the water bowl, the coffee table, the shelf. He had not been managing Luca. He had been managing Luca's access to things that could hurt him. Has your dog ever done something that made no sense until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. The gate came down. The bookshelf was anchored to the wall. Grace sat in Dr. Fuentes' office and looked at the behavioral timeline laid out on the desk in front of her and thought about the things she had read about, extensively in preparation for having a dog with a baby, the behavior she had correctly identified and incorrectly contextualized, the months she had spent managing a guardian by keeping him away from what he was guarding. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Luca is 14 months now. He walks, which has changed Atlas's operational landscape considerably. The body blocks are rarer. A walking toddler generates a different set of hazard assessments than a crawling one. Atlas still moves through rooms on a tracking route that covers the spaces Luca is likely to occupy, still positions himself between Luca and exits and stairs and the edge of the elevated deck in the backyard. He did this before anyone gave him permission to. He will continue doing it without being asked. Luca has named him. He says something that sounds like Ataz when he wants Atlas to come sit with him. Atlas always does. He accepts the name with the tolerance of someone who knows what his actual job is and does not require the title to be accurate. The next story involves a dog who spent 6 weeks alerting to the same window every morning, until the family discovered what was on the other side of the glass.